And good morning, and welcome back to the Up Zone, where understanding politics is made simple. We are your three hosts, Mr. Theodore Ted Moan, formerly of
Mhm.
the Fayetteville City Council. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Good morning.
And we've got our other lovely host, Mr. Elmer Floyd, formerly of the House of Representatives for the state of North Carolina.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir. And we've got myself, Tisha S. Waddell, your former Fayetteville City Council member for the 3rd District in the city of Fayetteville, North Carolina. We do have a special guest that will be joining morning here in the city. However, we are not going to let that stop our fun. We're going to shine like the sun today, and we're going to get into the gritty in the city on the word on the curb. Gentlemen, can you hear the feedback that's in my headphones, or is that just on my end?
I, I think it's on your end, but it looks like Senator Murdoch joined us.
She did. And Ted, you stop doing my job. We do have, like I said, a special guest. We've got a North Carolina State Senator, Senator Natalie Murdoch. Ms. Murdoch, if you'd like, you can go ahead and turn your camera on and join us so we can jump right into the gritty in the city and the word on the curb. Good morning, ma'am. How are you?
Good morning. Yeah, I will be on camera in 2 seconds. I'm getting to a better location.
Take your time. We're going to go ahead and do a couple of introductions while you get settled. And once you turn on your camera, we'll know you're ready to go. Mr. Floyd, let me ask you a question. It's been a lot going on. Let's start with the city council since let's hold off on talking about the state stuff and let's start with the city council. Now, the first thing you said to me today when we got on this planning session was you said, let's talk about how the city council wasted the citizens' time. How did they waste our time, Mr. Floyd? What did they do to us this?
Well, there was a 65% vote in 2018.
Yes.
And then we spent two important sessions talking about making 4-year stagnant terms.
Yes.
And what a waste of public time.
But who brought it up, Mr. Floyd? Who said let's go to 4-year terms? Who said that?
Well, that was a freshman council person who really did not understand or should have understand the lay of the land. And one thing that we know and we say, know your constituents and know
Know
where you
your
are going.
people. Know your people. And I think it's interesting because what we heard was that a lot of people were trying to cover for him in that meeting on Monday. And we'll get right back to that. Good morning, Miss Murdoch.
Good morning. How are you?
Doing fantastic. Senator, Mr. Floyd suggested that we have you on, and I'm so glad he did because you have a piece of legislation has it already passed or is it still on the floor?
This is under consideration. Yes. So
Okay.
we have filed it, and we're at that time of year where we're still working with our colleagues to work bills through the committee process.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about because this has been a huge topic of conversation in the city of Fayetteville in terms of police oversight. So tell us about your bill and what we should expect to see if this moves forward.
Yes. So this bill is separate from a larger bill that was filed that deals with kind of what police departments need, what mental health support do we need, and some gun reforms. But separately from that, worked with one of my favorite colleagues to work with in this space, Senator Masaba Muhammad. He's a public defense attorney, so has a lot of engagement with the criminal justice system. And so he knows that this is something near and dear to my heart. Worked with Attorney General Josh Don at DOJ through 2017. So something that I have studied a lot. And particularly after the post George Floyd era that we're in, so many communities nationally, including, Fayetteville, Durham, so many others are looking at how can we have some sort of oversight for our police departments and boards. And so citizen review committees is one that's really popular. You have around 200 across the nation. They vary in their power and what they can do. But overall, we definitely see that there is a need for oversight since it's, citizens that are engaging with the police, quite frankly, more than anyone. It's very reasonable to say we need some sort of mechanism so that if something were to come up, there is another entity that can provide review so that we can have more dialogue and engagement when you do have an incident with a police department to work with personnel, to work with city manager. I was obviously here in North Carolina. We are a strong city manager state. And so it just provides another level and layer of oversight. And so this legislation makes sure that if you are a city that wants to do that, you will have the statute that will provide you with permission to do that.
Absolutely. Do just the eyes in your shot. This Senator Murdoch, what type of authority? Perfect. What type of authority would this provide for? Because as you stated, a lot of the things that would need to be reviewed would be those personal records, which are available to for public consumption. So would this change that?
Yes. So this really is a foundation. I do not want to understate the difficulty of the political climate that we're dealing with in Raleigh. I am on the Democratic side of the aisle, so we are in a super minority in the House and the Senate. So it really provides a foundation. It's not a ceiling, it's really more of a floor to say at a bare minimum, we want you to be able to provide that oversight. There is language in there that if there is another review from the police department, from the city manager that would be outside of the purview of the board, it would start that initial review. But could it be stronger? Absolutely. From doing a little bit of research for this podcast, I think one of the strongest we've seen nationwide is in Baltimore, where they have their own independent investigators. Our legislation isn't there quite yet, but there are review boards where they have their own independent investigators to review information. But even unfortunately in Baltimore at one point, they lost access to that investigator. They lost the funding for it. So it is one of those issues
Next question.
where we are still looking for best practices and really seeing what has happened nationwide. But wanted to put something out there to let folks like we hear you. We do believe that there should be some level of oversight in the midst of still grappling with how do we have communities that feel safe with the work that their local police departments are doing.
So the last question I have, and then I'll turn it over to my co-host is, and you touched on it, is there funding attached?
So there isn't currently state funding. It provides the ability to have that. Local municipalities, cities that say, hey, we want to do this, or towns, they, through this bill, would have the ability to at least say that they want it funded and provide the parameters. But state funding isn't provided in this bill. Something else, if we ever get traction from the federal government, there have been talks with if we ever get some federal bill that deals with this as well, they would have grants also for things like citizen review boards and committees.
Okay, Mr. Floyd
Grants
or Ms.
that you
Ramon?
could apply for as a local government.
Okay. Gentlemen, y'all have any questions before I ask another question?
Teach what this bill does is allow local governments to establish review board without coming back to the General Assembly.
Yes.
Each municipality. So it sort of jumpstart that. But like Senator Murdoch mentioned, you got to start. When you look at government, you got to start somewhere. You always can add to, but there must be a starting point, and this is the starting point that some municipalities, are seeking, and especially ours. Given Senator Murdoch, we had a citizen advisory board report Monday to the city council, and it was somewhat a unique conversation, as I mentioned to you yesterday. There, so it's a starting point, and I salute you for having the courage in the General Assembly. When I look at my other minority representatives, I don't see them looking at what the effect that the General Assembly have towards the minority community, and I don't see a minority agenda being carried out by our minority representatives. So don't take it as an offense, but our concern across this nation and this state is the number of incidents between the African American community and the local law enforcement agencies. So I salute this.
Thank you. Thank you. But
Absolutely.
no, I think you laid it out. It definitely is to keep the conversation going, because we have to continue to talk about what are we going to do, in this era with policing, particularly as, you all know, because it's not far from Fayetteville, of George Floyd having ties to North Carolina, so I think we
Mhm.
have a duty to step up to the plate and do as much as we can, since unfortunately his tragic death served as a national rallying cry to say we have to reevaluate all these things, even though these were issues that were already out there. That's really when you saw legislation getting passed across the nation. We didn't go as far as I wanted us to here in North Carolina, but through Senate Bill 300 last session, we were at least able to move forward with things like duty to intervene, which is a huge deal. So, of course, so much more we can do around, implicit bias training, dealing with the ability for, officers to be charged with qualified immunity. But at least with this citizen review board, we can say that we want the community to be an active participant in oversight.
But let
I
me
have one
say,
more question for you.
Hmm.
So, is there tied to this piece of legislation any conversation or requirement for body cam footage to be automatically released? Because see regularly being asked is we want to review the footage, but presently the way legislation is drafted, you have to go through the court system and the court has
Mhm.
to approve that release. So, is there any attachment to this regarding body cam footage?
Tisha, I love that question, because unfortunately, as a brand new legislator in 2020, had a front row seat. As you know, we also had a tragic death, murder, in Elizabeth City, and as a result of that, family going to court, trying to get access to that footage. We, as a Black caucus, to your point, Representative Floyd, definitely need to spell out those goals a lot better. But as a Black caucus, we worked in the Senate and said we have to do something with this body cam footage. We talked to that family directly to say how upset we were that they didn't get access to that footage in a timely manner. Um, there isn't even a way for it just to be shown to family. We worked on a provision to say, at a minimum, particularly in an instance like this, you don't even
Hmm.
know how your family member died.
Right.
And that's inhumane. Behind the scenes, I will say there were Republican colleagues that were very supportive and said, let's figure something out. And it really is a mixed bag. I think a lot of folks will be shocked to find out a number of police departments are totally fine with getting this footage out there. We've seen in other
Hmm.
states where police departments voluntarily have released that footage. Since we had that state law change in North Carolina, it prevents them from doing that. And unfortunately, what happens, too much in the General Assembly, we worked really hard, thought we had an agreement in the Senate. So again, this is 20, it may be early 2021 at this point. Thought we had an agreement in the Senate. At a minimum, we had a provision in Senate Bill 300 that
Hmm.
family members would get access to the footage within a certain amount of time within that 30-day period. And actually, it may have been less than 30 days. So we thought we had an agreement. We worked with the various law enforcement partners, conference of district attorneys, all the folks you have to work with to do something like this. And it went to the House, and the provision was removed.
Okay.
But we were really close to at least getting access for the family. But I'm with you. I don't see why we cannot create some standard, um, to get that footage out there, because I think that's a big part of accountability. And with a number of the, unfortunately, mostly Black men that have been received some sort of justice, has been a result of cell phone footage.
Mm.
And that footage really does protect both sides. It protects the
Yes.
police, the city, and police. So huge. And I think that's a more, it's very unbiased camera footage. And so we can see like that happen. Mr. Moan, what are your thoughts
yeah,
about what Ms. Murdoch is sharing with us?
No, I really appreciate, Senate Bill 704. I was happy
Thank you.
that our senator down here in Cumberland County, Val Applewhite, she
Yes.
signed on to it. I sent her a
Yes.
couple of texts. Yeah, Val and I used to serve on city council together, so I know
Okay.
her quite well. Yeah, but
Yes.
no, I read your bill and it's really straightforward. I mean, it has the qualifications for the board members. It has term limits. It has a penalty if one of those citizen review board members leaks what they're not supposed to leak. There's
Hmm.
$1,000 penalty. So I think the construct and the of the 5-page bill was very well done, and like both you, Senator Murdoch, and Mr. Floyd, House of Representatives, you got to start at somewhere and then strengthen as you move forward. So and they've been calling for a civilian review board in Fayetteville for over 5 years. We have a local organization. They come before city council several times a year. And I know they would be very supportive. Kathy Greggs from the Fayetteville Pact, I'm friends with her, and she and a couple others, Sean McMillian, have been pushing for this for almost 5 years. So I appreciate what you're doing. Mm-hmm.
Now, Senator Murdoch, I do want to give you an opportunity because I know we did call you on to talk specifically about this piece of legislation, but I'd like to give you an opportunity to share with our audience anything that you'd like to share about what's happening in Raleigh, about what you're working on, and about just what you want us to know in general about what you got going on.
Yes, opening up, I did share a more general bill that we've also filed, a Safer Communities bill, because I also think that we have to be mindful, again, we'll be a little partisan as Democrats to make sure folks do know we want things like this, the citizen review boards, civilian review boards, where you have accountability and the community knows what's going on. But we definitely want to build safe. We just want to make sure we have safety with accountability. So we did file a broader Safer Communities bill earlier this week. We had a press conference on Tuesday. So we even had in the Senate Leader Dan Blue and the House Leader Reeves. And that bill will provide more resources so that we can have more community engagement with our police departments for them to have the resources they need. But we also have funds in there for more mental health supports in our local communities. We really are in the midst of a mental health crisis that a lot of folks are just not talking enough about, whether you be an adult or a student. So there's language in there about that. And we, unfortunately, as I was getting my remarks together for that press conference, we've had over 100 mass shootings as of Tuesday. Every time you go on that website and refresh, there's a new one. There was one listed on there. I believe it was in North Carolina. I believe it was in Goldsboro. And I said, wasn't even aware of this. But at any rate, we have to get a handle on doing something around gun reform. And unfortunately, some weeks ago, we repealed something called a pistol permit, where your sheriff has the ability to do that additional review to make sure that you don't have issues that would make us say we don't want you to have access to a firearm. In Durham County alone, when I checked in with my sheriff, he has denied some 120 pistol permits just last year alone from saying, oh, you were charged with something yesterday, or we just arrested you for domestic violence a few days ago. So no, we were not giving you this permit for a pistol. So for us to do that, not even 48 hours after the most recent tragic school shooting in Tennessee, it's just insane that we move forward with that legislation at that rate when we could have done work around universal background checks, safe storage. So definitely concerned about that, but I'm excited that we moved that bill forward. And just in general, it is going to be a tough session. On my side of the aisle, we are in the super minority in the House and the Senate. So a lot of what we do every day is take bad bills and just remove as many of those bad provisions as we can. We've touched on policing this morning, but from a criminal justice perspective, that may include getting something to a misdemeanor instead of a felony so that it won't follow you around for the rest of your life. So we may not agree with the bill, but at least we can say we don't want it to be so harmful, particularly to Black and brown people, to give them a charge that will follow them around and make it hard for them to get housing, make it hard for them to get employment. So that's really a lot of what we're doing in the House and the Senate every day, is working with the legislation that's in front of us. Something else that was concerning just yesterday, I'm on the education committee. There is a bill out there to increase school vouchers. And I'm not against school choice, but we have a constitutional obligation to provide children with a sound basic education. And we can't lift up the opportunities, scholarships and voucher programs to spite our public schools. That's my concern. And under this expansion, you could literally be a millionaire and your children can qualify for these vouchers. The purpose of these vouchers were for families that cannot afford access to these schools. So to have that much public money going into this program when we still have public schools where roofs are leaking and need to pay our educators more, have teachers paying for school supplies, we just don't need that level of investment at this time. So that was a big bill that came out just yesterday.
Senator Murdoch,
And
let
then
me
today
ask
in
you
the
a
Senate, we'll
question
be
about
dealing
that
with the
bill.
Farm Act as well. Yes.
Okay, let me.
Yep.
I apologize for interrupting you, but I did have that on my
Yes.
list. Currently, are the dollars that are allocated to school choice program, not school program, are they
Mm-hmm.
expended to zero and then
Yeah.
replenished, or they're not?
Love
So
that question. They have never
is
utilized all the funds, not a single calendar year, fiscal year.
does this bill actually attach more funding, or does it just open up the expend the funding?
Both. It provides
Okay.
more funding. It changes the eligibility requirements. I believe it was either 2021 or 2020 where we increased the. I voted against it, full disclosure, but they raised the cap to where I think you can make upwards of 150,000 a year to house two person household. That you can make more money and be eligible. So that was changed in around 2021. So now it will and make more people eligible and provide more funding for the vouchers as well.
Last question about those vouchers. Does it remove the requirement that you be in public school to you?
Yes, that
Okay.
that is removed. And we actually did have some parents that shared that they had maybe two children that were eligible or not one, because they only wanted to go to that institution and not public. So that requirement is waived in the legislation.
Okay.
Hmm.
Well, y'all, that's all these questions because I'll keep you all day, Senator Murdoch.
No, these are good ones because I mean, public full disclosure, public school K through 12, and again, I'm not against providing options, but you are, in my opinion, in this instance, propping up a program that just isn't working. You know, when you keep dumping money at it, we've been doing this for 10 years. It started in 2013, so it's not as if, oh, this was the 3-4 year pilot. 10 years from a data perspective is more than enough time for you to do an analysis and see if something's working or not. It's not
Mhm.
working. So you keep changing the requirements, you keep shifting
Hmm.
things around when keep the money where it is, and if they use it, they use it. But to say we're going to continue to
I
push
understand.
resources in that direction when we have failing schools across this state that are public, everyone doesn't have the opportunity to go wherever they want to go to school. What about those students?
Hmm.
I get
That
letters from
plan
them
being
every day.
talked about. That's good. Is either in the Senate or that you may be aware of in the House, the failing school. That's a big discrepancy. When we
Yes.
look here in Cumberland County, this a couple of weeks ago, our schools are
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
seems to be no resolution. So is there a
Yes.
okay?
And actually, but thank you, Tisha, for that, because that's an important differentiator with these charter schools and some of the private schools. I was having this talk with someone yesterday. A failing grade of a C or a D. It's hard to compare that public school with a C to some of the charter and private because they may not be held to the same standards. So you're essentially comparing apples and oranges. If their
Hmm.
requirements are so much different, then you may think, oh, I'm going to a charter school or a private school that's an A. It depends. It depends on what level of review. They probably don't have the same testing requirements. Their teachers don't have to have the same levels of certifications. So we're essentially setting up a system where we're only shining a really bright light on the public schools as we should. But you also have to hold any school that is receiving money from taxpayer dollars, you have to be held accountable. So those were our questions yesterday of where's the accountability for these schools that will get additional funding. I'm a proud Christian, but we have some of these schools that want to convert you to certain religions with public dollars. That should be something that if you want to do that, that's fine. but I can't say I'm going to take that away from a school district that is having issues with their public schools to do that. But absolutely, do we need more oversight? Do we need to make sure we're bringing all of our schools up to code? Absolutely. And we should be doing more of that, instead of things like what we're doing with these vouchers. Just kind of leave that program where it is, and let's focus on getting all of our public schools to the very highest standard that we possibly can. And that will take funding. And that's the point, is put that money into the schools that we have a constitutional obligation to make sure that they succeed.
Absolutely. Mr. Floyd, you want to wrap this segment for us?
Senator Marta, I think that many of our citizens across the state get confused with the council and the city manager. We have a council manager form of government.
Yes.
The police chief is hired by the city manager and not the city council. So
Mm-hmm.
therefore, a
Yep.
lot of concerns and a lot of time is spent by communities going to the council or county segment, when really it is the city manager that hires the chief of police.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
more dialogue should be taking place with that manager to get him to see what are some of the changes that need to be made in the law enforcement area through his selection process.
Mm-hmm. No, very well stated. Folks, have kind of this idea of what their mayors are and city council. And had I not come from government, I actually started in local government in my 20s. And that's when I learned, wow, city managers have a lot of power.
They
Um,
got it
and
all.
they do.
Yeah.
And the average citizen has no idea just how powerful that city manager is. And the same at the county level with your county manager.
Yep.
And
I
I
love
just
to hear
want to
you
say
say that.
thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you for the short notice and responding to my request. And thank you for informing our citizens that we have a council manager form of government. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah. Reach out to
And
your
if you
local
ever
city
have anything
manager.
else, if you ever have anything else you want to share, please feel free to give us a call. You're welcome on the program.
Yes, absolutely. Because as I wrap, also doing a lot of work in the Black maternal health space. So do want to give a plug. I will be on Capitol tonight, talking about Black maternal health. So
Mm.
also your Senator Val Applewhite was on two of those bills with us. Proud to say, in the state Senate, every single Black woman in the state Senate is on one of our Black maternal health bills. We filed four of them.
Wow.
Every single one is a primary sponsor of some sort. So we'll be talking about that. Unfortunately, Black women are 3 to 4 times more likely to die simply from childbirth. So
Mm-hmm.
we'll be on Capitol Tonight, Spectrum News, talking about that. I think it comes on at 7:30.
Mm.
Let me ask you another
Awesome.
question that you asked too. What about
Yes.
Senate? What about Senate Bill Senate Bill 296 and the House Companion Bill 346? That's Blue Cross and Blue Shield. Just a comment on that.
Yeah, so full disclosure, Blue Cross Blue Shield is in my district, so I am supportive of that legislation and co-sponsored it. Yes, so I personally am supportive of the legislation. We're working on a lot of changes before it made it out of the House. Still in negotiations before it comes to the Senate, but I am supportive of the legislation. It is a huge employer to my district, and I think we can figure out a way to do it and still, not rock the boat too much with our other insurance companies here in North Carolina,
Hmm.
but supportive.
Thank you so much.
but I do have a bias there. So full disclosure, I'm transparent about that.
Okay. Thank
We
you.
appreciate that.
I saw it on
Well,
there.
you have to get to Raleigh, so we won't hold you to coming
No
on this
problem.
morning, Senator Murdoch.
Yes. Thank
Be
you so
Thank
safe.
you
much.
so much. Thank you. Thank all of
Thank
you.
you.
Have a great day.
You too. Thank you.
You too. Bye bye.
Bye.
So, gentlemen, I think that's excellent information that we received this morning. I want to share that and pass that along to our audience. Listen, I mean, we've been talking about a citizen for 5 years. I do want to say this. I stand behind the idea that body cam footage is more valuable than any other any other legislation. It body cam footage is the most valuable legislation we could see passed right now. the releasing of that footage, because there have been instances when body cam footage has either solidified the story or has completely exonerated anybody from being accused of whatever they were being accused of
Hmm.
on both sides. And I
Right.
think that, while we may think that a would be a non-biased, empathetic, or non-empathetic to the police board, there's no guarantee of that. But footage is footage, and it is what it is. And I do know that cameras can lie too, so don't think that that's what I'm saying. But I'm just saying I think that we need to see that body cam footage legislation changed ASAP.
Teaching one thing for you and Ted to take in consideration. In my community, which is zip code 301, you
Hmm.
know, we are lured when the body cam is pre-release. And prior to pre-release, it also attaches that personal criminal record, if you understand. It is
Hmm.
released in because it shows that this person has a criminal record. So you release the footage then, you know,
Hmm.
very freely. And so that's what we look at, that, is that sometimes it is and sometimes it's not. And it's,
And it
and
should be it should be across the board the same
yes,
practice, right?
yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I agree completely.
So I'm
Hmm.
lured, and my community is lured when they volunteer release the footage prior to,
Hmm.
without even asking, or not necessarily, when they release it without a demand placed on it, or a court order.
And
Or
I think that it should be that, and I know that there are some instances, like as an example, when a police officer responds to a domestic violence call and they're in somebody's home, and the body cam footage may be capturing intimate moments within a person's home. Anytime there is a request made of body cam footage to be released, I believe that the body cam footage should be released. And I think that there should be there has to be some way to make that happen without endangering um the little girl who might be sitting on the couch and might not be properly dressed, it in the police officers. Y'all understand what I'm trying to say,
Yeah.
without,
well,
Yep.
there has to be some way to do that.
well, Tish, that's why we're saying with Southern America, being a former legislator, you have to somewhere. You
Mhm.
got to start somewhere. You're not going to get in any piece of legislation 100%
Everything you want.
of what
Yep.
you. So you can, if you get it started, you can always go back and add on to.
And
But
I love how she said this is the floor. It's not the ceiling.
Right.
This is the
Right.
floor. We're trying to get something on the table. I love that.
Hmm.
Now these school vouchers, I had that on my list, y'all. The school vouchers. I, I I am very confused by, and I'm a proponent of school vouchers, but I'm confused by somebody making unlimited dollars being able to qualify for um tax funding to send their kids to a school. That, but I guess in to play devil's advocate, I guess the thinking would be, if you're paying taxes, you should have access to your tax dollars educationally, playing devil's advocate. So I can see, I guess, both sides. I do recognize that there's got to be some wisdom incorporated into how this is executed.
remember,
Right. And
remember what you said. You got to start somewhere.
um,
So by starting the program for those that are poor, that was a start.
Right.
mhm.
Yeah.
Then you increase the dollar value from 42 to 49. The range from 150. Now it's unlimited. So it's a starting. Watch the starting point.
Yeah.
Absolutely. They play. I'll tell you right now, like how she said, full disclosure. Yes, last year funding because my kids at a private school. Classes I'm most certainly going to take it. And I just so y'all put it on the table.
Now, Keisha, one thing that you have to remember, you know, I believe that a family should have the choice for their children.
Mm-hmm.
Now, some families are not. Some school children are not good in public settings,
Right.
but they can do well in private settings. So I believe that decision should be left up to the family. Truly, if there's a D student, if there's a D school across the street, and I can make my son a peanut butter sandwich and put him on public transit and let him get to a school where he can learn more, then I got to fix him that peanut butter sandwich and put him on that public transit so he can get to that school.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Last, before we take our break, because we have, listen, I forgot to say this. Today we talked to Natalie Murdoch. We talked about her bill, Senator Natalie Murdoch. We talked about the advisory. We'll talk a little bit about what we saw happen on the city council meeting. We also, Katie, we're seeing happening at on the Hill, not seeing it happening. We want to talk about the expansion. I touch on who elections. Talked about this term limit. We'll hit just a little bit more on that, and also committee. So we'll talk about and the Blue Cross Blue Shield. Mr. Floyd, I want to hear your thoughts about that. And lastly, we'll talk about these PWC enhancements. Before we shift from the voucher program, I want to say this. Recognize with saying it's like comparing apples to oranges. You know what's a great metric performs? Where the kids end up. So a great metric of how many of your students you have graduating, how many of them are matriculating, how many of them are entering into the workforce and maintaining your employability, able to take care of themselves and their families. Those are good metrics. The metric of how many kids can pass a standardized test, that's a stupid metric.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of kids don't test well. So that's a dumb metric. The metric of whatever else they're using to grade these schools, graduation levels, to make it from kindergarten through 12th grade. That's a good metric. Whether you're going on to college and being accepted into a college, because they have different, the colleges have standard requirements across the board of what they will use to accept you. So acceptance into a school, whether you matriculate out of that school, is a pretty good standard. And then whether you're employed, because everybody won't go to college. So whether you are employed, years of education. Those are good things. Like we need to be looking at this. If you came through, and Mr. Floyd, you said it. If I've got a D school, if I've got a D elementary school, well, the kids that are going to that D elementary school, if they stay in the same neighborhood that they're in, unless redistricting occurs, they're going to go to the middle school that serves that elementary school, which means now you've probably got a D middle school. And then the kids that go to that middle school move over to the high school, which means now you got a D high school. So the kids are going from one place to the next place to the next place, and you can track that. You can track that. You can track who's going to private schools. You can track that. Last thing, I wouldn't want to be a private school and take public funding. Not a private Christian school. I wouldn't want to do it for exactly the reasons that Senator Murdoch highlighted. The government being able to come in and tell me how I needed to run my school. Gentlemen, any closing thoughts on that before we take our pause and let you gentlemen refresh your coffee and let me take a 30-second break?
Mm. Nope.
Mr. Floyd,
Yeah.
y'all know these schools are my soapbox. Y'all got to push me off my soap. Y'all know the schools are my, as a former substitute teacher and as a mom with kids in school, y'all
Yeah.
know soapbox. So y'all push me off of there. I enjoyed having her as a guest, Mr. Floyd. Thanks for inviting her on.
Yeah.
You're
She's
welcome.
good. She was very
Yeah,
good.
good job, sir. Good job. We're going to take a 1 minute break. We're going to turn our cameras off, but we will be right back. So do not leave us. We are the Up Zone, where understanding politics is made simple, and we will be right back in 60 seconds.
Are you looking for a real estate agent who knows the Fayetteville community inside and out? Look no further, as your hometown girl, LaTanya, has extensive experience of our area and experience in its real estate market. LaTanya delivers results. At LMR Realty Group, we all understand that buying or selling a home can be a stressful experience. When you partner with us, you control the decisions while LMR Realty Group guides the process, and together we'll work from contract to close with ease. Whether you're a first-time buyer, downsizing, or expanding your investment portfolio, LMR Realty Group has got you covered. As a bonus, if you call and go under contract by March 31st, LMR Realty Group can cover up to $400 for a home warranty on a resale property with all appliances included. Some exclusions apply. Don't wait. Call 910-574-8225 or visit ELLIMARRealtyGroup.com to get you started. Let's make your dream home a reality with LMR Realty Group.
All right, and welcome back to the Up Zone, where understanding politics is made simple. We are your three hosts, Mr. Elmer Floyd, Mr. Ted Moan, and Tisha S. Waddell. And we're going to jump right back into the gritty and the city and the word on the curb. If you missed the first segment, go back and watch it because you missed a great segment. We had Senator Natalie Murdoch, and she came on and she talked about a piece of legislation that has before the Senate, and it is discussing citizen review boards. Listen, none of us disagree. Ted, Elmer, none of us disagree that a citizen review board, that this is a piece of legislation that is necessary, right? We all agree.
Yes, I agree.
It's all about the
my brother is a chief of police in Illinois, and I agree. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. And I think even to a degree, we will recognize that police officers in this climate also feel the same way because there's a lot of really great police officers
Mm-hmm.
and they want to be exonerated from this bad reputation that the few bad apples are giving them in their uniforms. So
Yeah.
I get it. Mr. Floyd, listen, you asked the question, so I'm going straight to you. Let's talk Blue Cross Blue Shield. Tell us
Well,
about it.
there is some concern, and as Senator Murdoch mentioned that she, support of what Blue Cross and Blue Shield is trying to do, and basically saying that they won't become a profit-making organization. I'm just going to say the word profit. They indicated they have like $77 million in access. So they want to have more leverage as it relates to how they move forward as it relates to other insurance companies. And Representative Lambert, who helped pass the Medicaid bill, has a different viewpoint of that. And House has spent just about a half, three-quarter of $1 million to get their request moved forward. And so
Mm-hmm.
they have about 36 senators, and they have about 56 House members that are on board, supporting them as they move forward. A lot of what they want to do is look like what other insurance companies is doing across America. They are somewhat buying up other companies and sort
Mm-hmm.
of, expanding their market. So in order to do that, they right now you might say that they want to, that their base is the North Carolina citizens, some 2.5 million, and they had 795 state employees. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what their market, and but they want to expand that, that market. And we had some of the Representative Jackson and Representative Lucas from Cumberland County sign on to the bill for that change that Blue Cross and Blue Shield want to make. Again, Blue Cross spent $577,000, and they also spent another $277,000 to in contribution from their PACs,
Oh,
move their idea forward.
so what you're saying is that they've got some huge lobby on.
They have 11 lobbyists who are, again, are talking to legislators to get the legislators and senators to buy into Blue Cross and Blue Shield vision. Now, the gentleman who was pushing the bill also indicated that he may run for the insurance commission, uh, you know, next in 2024.
Mm.
So we have an advocacy person there, as they move, as they move forward. Just like anything else, people want to look at the broader picture, and that's what Duke is trying to do now. So many feel that it will move it from the mom and pop, so to speak, to a much climate, and it may not be beneficial to the citizen of that
Yeah,
helps
and
build.
the headline was really very telling because the headline was like Blue Cross Blue Shield wants to privatize with that, and they want funding without oversight. Like that's basically what the headline was saying.
And that's, I mean, they want to be more marketable. Is and everything is changing. I'll give you an example. I went to a place to get a physical, and upstairs they say, well, go upstairs and get your blood work done. And so that's one physical, like the senator said, on the ground
Right.
floor. But there's another organization that's on the top floor that is also benefiting from the organization on the ground floor. So it's the way that the American economy is moving now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, Ted, what are your thoughts about that? Do you think that it makes sense for that to move forward, or do you have some hesitation?
Um, I haven't really been tracking it. I need to go,
Okay.
read, do some Googling or, see what the General Assembly is doing. But that's not one I've really been tracking.
Got it. No problem at all. Let's talk about who's running in these upcoming elections. Let's touch on that. Mr. Floyd did say that we've got somebody who's talking about running for the insurance commissioner. So who else are we seeing? I know, listen, I know it's a lot of people that don't like Mark Robinson, but I just want to go on record as, and I've said this before, I like him. I like him. I like the fact that he stands up and says the quiet part out loud. The fact that he, advocates for the rights of the people. I like the fact that he touts very loudly and does that. I like Mark Robinson. So who really announced his bid for governor? I don't like that he did not announce on our show, but I like Mark Robinson. So who else are we seeing saying, "Hey, I want to run for something"? And what rumors are we hearing? Who are we hearing maybe running for something?
Well, so far, Chris Ray, which is the former mayor of Spring Lake,
Spring Lake.
uh, now he has his eye on the lieutenant governorship of
Really?
the state of, yes. And we have Charles Dunn, who is from here, ex-Marine. I think he retired as a colonel or a major. He is looking at running for attorney. And so right now you have Robertson and you have Farwell. Both are looking at the governorship there. And we do have, I think the guy was Harrison, if I'm not mistaken, out of Charlotte. He is running for, I think it's the insurance commissioner, also. And then quite naturally we have Josh Stein that is running for governor. So,
Hmm.
but what you got to look at there, Keisha, is that I'm a Democrat. As a
North
Democrat,
Carolina's red.
we're gonna have to change the message that we are giving to our voters, because if you look at it, of the 10 council or state positions, it's by Republicans and 4 are by Democrats. We have 2 U.S. senators, the Supreme Court, 5-2, appellate court. We lost all of them. But our message this year is that we talk about a particular group, but I don't see an African American agenda put as hard as it is another group that our party is looking at. Our party
Absolutely. And
wants to go,
yeah, and
so
I
our
want to
party
piggyback on what you go
uh,
ahead, Mr.
our party want to go and rule North Carolina, you know, and there's certain things that you cannot carry to rule North Carolina in order to get those votes. The
Mm,
unaffiliated voters are outnumbering the Democrat and the Republican. So we
Mm-hmm.
got
Hmm.
when I mean, anybody can't see that the leads are changing. That means that if we're losing that many members of voters, common sense would tell you guys have to change. That's
Change
common sense.
the message. And Mr. Floyd, I'm gonna say again, as the only one of you guys, I will say, and I'm point to Senator White's absence during regarding transgender in athletics. Um, reminder of the what I'm saying. I think that as long as, and Mr. Floyd, you touched on it a little bit when you said they're focusing on other people's issues more than they are on the minority issues, minorities. And women have been and the supporting mechanism in the Democratic Party. Women, but women. Now, is there's a large push disenfranchise women are not okay. We are not okay with that. We can be very patient and very to the idea people should be able to live their life however they want to live their lives. But what we are not patient with, and we must now change the way we live our like this push to identify who are born with a uterus and a vagina and breast, even in those mechanisms that are now being demanded on to refer to ourselves as to validate the label. And see, the vast majority of us are just not going for that. And so as long as the Democrat Party continues to that notion, you always say, Mr. Floyd, audience, you are your audience. Your audience. That is not what we're asking. Many people are saying, yes, protect people's ability to be able to live in whatever state they wish to live, including ours. Protect ours. So I think we
Mm-hmm.
seeing some real we're seeing some issues there.
Yep. And
What do you
I
think?
wanted to. So this is the North Carolina Senate. There was two people missing that day for the Fairness in Women Sports Act, where the Republicans want to restrict biological males, uh, participating in female sports in middle school and high school. And so I wanted to, kind of look at all the faces of the 18 Democrats that voted no. And it's a very
He said, out of
blended
how many Democrats? How many?
20 out of 20. Two had
Okay.
excused absences. So all 18 present. But you hear names, but like Senator Murdoch this morning. I knew what she looked like because I put this chart together. But
I wish
you
I would have
have
seen this chart before that interview. I would have loved to have asked her about that.
yeah, yeah. I mean, but it's very blended. You have women, males. You have people of different ethnicities, in here. But as Mr. Floyd was saying, what is the North Carolina? North Carolina State Senate. I mean, what is their, what are they trying to do? They just many
Yeah,
times
what's the end game?
vote. What's the end game? And again, I mean, you have younger people, you have older people on this chart. You have white, black, Charlery, I believe he's from Lumberton down there. I mean, so I mean, There's even a Mrs. Waddell. You're not related to Miss Waddell, are you, Senator Waddell?
No, but if I was, I'd be giving her a call this evening, asking her, "What's up? What's up,
Yeah,
Auntie? What's
yeah.
going
But
on?"
I just wanted to show that the North Carolina Senate Democrat Party is really a blended party. So I'll take this off.
Well, Ted, no, leave that slide up for a second because I want to challenge what you're saying. I think this is a very youthful representation of the state of North Carolina in terms of the Democratic Party, with the exception of one, two, three,
Right.
maybe four people. This
No,
is
no. Yeah,
probably, yeah, this
yeah,
50-ish and down, which is
yeah.
relatively, when we speak politically, that's relatively youthful. And I think if this would have been a different composition, and I'm not gonna make a lot of conjecture because I can't read anybody's mind, but I'll tell you, I wonder if some of the people who voted for this did it simply because, or if it's really what they believe that their constituents.
Um, I, I think it's more pressured by the party, and I wish our North Carolina House and Senate, whether Republican or Democrat, I don't care, quit following national trends. What do the people of North Carolina really think? Don't look at national polls and stuff. Do some polling in North Carolina, both Republican and Democrat. And, I don't know too many people that I've ever talked with that support biological males playing in female sports in elementary school and in high school. Now, once you get to the collegiate or the Olympics, they got their own committees and everything else. But I just wish they wouldn't just always voting, not always, but voting lockstep. Both House Republicans and Democrats. So, but no, you made a good point. This is a youthful looking group of Senate Democrats. Yes.
Right. But I
Uh,
mean, it is what it is. The vote will let it pan out. But
mhm,
mm-mm, mm-mm. Mr. Floyd,
Well, my concern has always been know your audience.
mhm.
absolutely. I did hear a rumor, and I'm not going to name unless I get ahead from former House Representative 43. But we did hear another. I heard another rumor about somebody potentially running House District 43. Miss Floyd, had you heard any rumors about that?
I hear the rumor, but I know that a close friend of mine has mentioned, have there's a rumor that a person that I started off with, in fact, we all started. There were three of us started in the political arena together, and that's rumor deal. But I won't give
We
that person
right now.
I won't give that person free advertisement. But it also shows you how politics, really plays in the area of individuals. I just leave it at as that.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
And two more
And
things before we go ahead. Go ahead, Ted.
yeah, I would just say anybody thinking about running for any House or Senate seat in Cumberland County probably just needs to wait until the redistricting, because these districts almost guaranteed are not going to be the same in 2024 for both the Cumberland County House and Senate.
But when you are
And
out, but tell you what you got to look at though. People will do what they call exploratory, and they are sort of doing things behind the scene prior to it, and it's like jugging the ball. If it
mm,
if it look good over here for the U.S. House, then that may be the way that I look at it. Or if it look good over here on this side, then I'll look at it. And what people really look at is that some people really want to hold a public office, So every time a public office becomes available, he or she will throw their hat in on it, and it doesn't look good when you keep flip flopping, from
Mm-mm.
Oh yeah.
office to first office. It doesn't look good.
Yeah,
That's just
I'm
my,
for it.
that's just my opinion,
Mm-mm.
you
I'm
know.
ready to announce for bid. I'm ready to let them have it. But tell
You
Clyde,
know,
go ahead, sir.
Yeah, this is the last input I have. So we did have our local delegation in the House. All four co-sponsor three bills. Three
Okay.
million for the PD Fayetteville training facilities. 3.5 million for the North Carolina State Veterans Park Phase 2, and 2.5 million for Fayetteville corridor improvements. And I watched the meeting the other day, and all three were sent over to appropriations, and if favorable, they'll go to the rules and calendar of the House. So we did get some last minute, um, and it was bipartisan. All four of our House of Representatives in Cumberland County all co-sponsored these bills, and they weren't just thrown in the trash. They actually went to appropriations, probably because Diane Wheatley co-sponsored it.
But nothing for a new E.E. Smith still.
No, no, and
Okay.
yeah, yep, and
now, Ted, now that's, yeah, as you mentioned, those bills are really going to appropriation.
I believe so. Yeah,
Now, if I'm not mistaken, I believe the House sent the bill over to the Senate.
yeah, they're done with their budget. They passed their budget and sent it to the Senate.
And the only way that that could be done, Tish, is that I'm not sure that somebody on the House, on the Senate side, would throw it in, or it'll come through as a technical amendment since a bill is already in place. Now, I'm not sure now. I have Ted that's kept up with it, but again, Tish, as you mentioned, you met with the Cape Fear Valley Hospital, the school board, county commissioners, and city council. And where, as you look at it, where are their requests from our legislators to assist them, with their growth? So when you say appropriation, you're talking about the full appropriation committee,
Mm-hmm.
and
Oh,
then you have to look at where that amount of money is going to come from when there's already established program that's in place. I mean, budgetary programs, and then there's already a limit of what both chambers have agreed to you know what their cap is. So it's sort of hard to ask another agency to give up some money when we've already appropriated. So it got to come from the same agency that the money is requested for. If it's public, I think it's what they call it now, police, whatever it is, that highway patrolman and the SBI, as part of that. It
Mm-hmm.
has to come from that area of the budget.
Okay. Well, it looks like it's a lot going on. It looks like it's quite a bit to keep up with. I think one of the things that we probably need to do is really drill down as this budget process continues to move forward. Just continue to highlight where dollars will be coming into our municipality.
You're gonna
I
have a
think it's
budget.
also,
Teach you
I
gonna have a budget.
I believe you.
Have a
I
budget.
believe you, Mr. Floyd. I totally and completely believe that. I think we also really need to take some time and be talking about, and we'll hit on this, I guess, next week because we didn't get to it today. The PWC enhancements. Let's really kind of drill into that and talk about how that's going to affect ratepayers. I did have an occasion to speak with my council person who represents District 3 currently about where they are with the budget and with the bonds. And I was right when I said that the city manager, based upon his comments, that there must be some hesitancy from the council in general in moving forward with this bond package. And as I spoke with Mr. Benavente, I did recognize that I'm on to something with my line of thinking. So I say we should probably continue to watch how that plays out, and just continue to educate our constituency about that. And really just continue to watch who's doing what, who's saying what, so that we can keep educating our listeners and our viewers on this process and on the different projects and policies that they see popping up around town and around the city and the state. Um, that's really all I have, gentlemen. How about you guys? What's your final thoughts, final words for today?
Well, Tish, I just like for us to be reminded of the low budget process, the city and and the state, and don't forget the county said they on track with their civic. I mean, with their what is this Mother Purpose Civic Center or what?
The Civic Center.
So be reminded of those things.
Hmm. Ted?
Yeah, I'd recommend watching the budget work session Monday. We're looking at some policy changes at public hearings, which I do not agree with, but just have to see how it goes.
Can you make a note for us to talk about that next week also, Ted? I want
Oh,
us to hit on that next week too.
okay, but that's all I have for today.
Okay, well, that's the gritty in the city and the word on the curb. And like Mr. Floyd always tells us, there's so much good in the
And the
worst
best,
of us. There's so much bad in the
best of us
that it behooves none of us.
to talk about the rest of us.
The rest
That's
of
the
them.
gritty in the city and the word on the curb. And that's what we have for you today. So we will catch you next week on the next episode of the Up Zone. Have a great week.
All right.